on doing a YouTube live. We were trying to bring Eric in on the live, and the first time through, we did about a half hour, and it was just me. No one can ever tell me I can't talk off the top of my head for a half hour straight and try to sound somewhat coherent. But the intent was to get Eric on the YouTube live as well. So Eric has joined us. He figured out what I was doing wrong, thankfully. And YouTube has put us in a situation where you and I can talk together and get some of the people back that we had in the first YouTube live and get some of the great questions. First of all, Eric, thanks for figuring that out for us, and thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me. Glad to be here. It's been a day. Donald Trump fucked things up like always.
It's the thing about it is the reason I wanted to have you on here is because while you and I are of a similar mind, we have a contrasting style. I'm more of a big picture guy, and you do the hard work, you do the research and the studying, and you know the details. So I count on you a lot. And I know when we're in the lives on TikTok, there's a lot of people in there, and I don't think you always get enough time to talk about the things you talk about because they are important, they are valuable, and people watch you on TikTok and YouTube and such. And that's why I wanted to make sure we got you here. And I have to point out one of the reasons we're on YouTube Live too, and I'm going to do more YouTube Lives, mainly because the last TikTok Live, this last one we did the other day, I got my ass kicked off. Something was said toward the end. We went an hour and 45 minutes, and when it was all said and done, TikTok yanked us down, and there was nothing I could do with that. So here we are on YouTube. And while we're talking about this, Eric, you and I both have been thinking about this whole end, imminent end of TikTok, if that should happen. This is really where I think we both feel more comfortable is on YouTube. We have a little more freedom. It's a lot easier in many ways. It's not quite as convoluted as what we deal with on TikTok. So I think we both feel pretty well at home here on YouTube.
Yeah, and YouTube it's a lot easier to do. Um, you don't get shadow banned. Your videos don't get hidden. You don't get muted for whatever dumb reason they
Right.
come up with. You know, which is all good. I mean, it's easier to upload stuff to YouTube, whereas like over on TikTok, you have to record it, then upload it, and then if you want to download it and put it somewhere else, you have to wait till it's posted to download it, or you get the watermark, and there's so much hassle over there.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I shouldn't say this because TJ's incorrigible, but it's his premise that we got taken down because you were sans pants on TikTok, and that is just not true.
I mean, if that was the case, if that was why they were taking us down, we covered that in the first 10 minutes. So why did it go an
Yeah,
hour 45 before they took us down?
yeah, no kidding, no kidding. We were talking when I was doing a live just a little bit ago. I did a short one that'll be out there, but the whole situation with this press conference with Zelensky, I had a feeling it would go like it did with Macron, and it would go with uh, the British Prime Minister Starmer. Where they played nicey nice. I give those two credit because they corrected Donald Trump, and you could see in his face it just annoyed him, but he didn't feel like he could push back and argue with them, so he just kind of kept it cool. Now, when it came to Zelensky, it was a much different situation because Donald Trump feels like he's superior and he's the bully in this situation. Were you surprised by how contentious this whole thing got? I was a little surprised it went that unhinged.
Not at all. Especially considering, remember that really the first time they Zelensky was even mentioned with Donald Trump goes back to 2019 and the perfect phone call, which wasn't
Yeah,
really perfect. And when it looked like Joe Biden was going to be the eventual Democratic nominee, he tried to dig up dirt, or Trump wanted Zelensky to dig up dirt on Joe Biden. So just say you're doing an investigation, and we'll take it from there. Basically, don't even have to do it; just say it, and then oh, if you do, then we will give you the aid we've already promised. It's all a joke. Donald Trump doesn't know what he's doing. And ever since he's been against Zelensky because Zelensky embarrassed him, got him impeached the first time for just speaking the truth. I shouldn't
Yeah,
say Zelensky got him impeached because Donald Trump, his own actions got him impeached. But in Trump's
absolutely.
mind, it's Zelensky's fault.
I wanted to ask you about this too. There are some people talking about this, that this was all a setup. The way it went down was intended to do that. That Donald Trump had to have some reason to deny him the support. But the fact of the matter is Donald Trump wasn't offering any support. He was basically saying, he said, when he was asked about future security for Zelensky and Ukraine, he says, I can't even think about security right now. Who knows what's going to happen in the future? We can't do anything until the deal's done. And anybody
Yeah.
who's ever done a deal, when somebody says, you just sign this deal and give me what I want, and I'll catch you later, that's a red flag, especially when you're going up against Donald Trump, who's a fucking deadbeat.
Oh yeah. I mean, there was nothing in this deal um, that was in the favor of Ukraine, other than I guess you could say them repaying the money that we have given them in aid. But even that, haven't even given them 150 billion. This deal was supposed to be worth 500 billion in our favor,
Yeah,
and that's not how you treat allies. Uh, just before I did my TikTok on it, I did a little bit of research. Like you said, I look into the details. Do you know how long it took Great Britain to repay the money we borrowed them for World War II?
how long?
56 years.
Eh,
They
that's
finally
long
finished
term.
repaying in 2006. We only charged them 2% interest because that's how you treat your allies. That's how you treat
Right.
your closest friends. No, what Donald Trump wants to do is charge them like 300% interest. Oh, by the way, payments due before your country's even secure and free of the foreign invaders.
Well, you know what the interesting telling point was? When Donald Trump was asked, how much money are you going to give them? Did you hear what he said about how he's going to pay them? He said that, well, it depends on how much, he said raw earth. It's rare earth. The motherfucker doesn't even know that. He says it depends on how much money we make from the rare earth that we get out of Ukraine. We'll give them a percentage of that back. So you're telling me I'm going to cut a deal with you. You get to steal my shit. And the moment you make profit off of my shit, then you'll give me money back. That's
Yeah,
not a fucking good deal. That's a horrible deal.
yeah, but that's typical of how Donald Trump does deals. That's how he's
Yeah.
always done his business deals. People think he's a good businessman, but he's not. And it's all about what's in it for him. Now his supporters and him will say, "Well, Zelensky didn't want to actually come to the table and isn't really negotiating." No, that is again not how you do world politics. As I said in your last live in the comments, he lowered our standing on the world stage. I
No
saw
question.
something. I don't know if it's legit. Saw something on TikTok. Is apparently a bunch of world leaders are meeting in Ukraine right now without us
Absolutely.
after this. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think these Europeans have already resigned themselves to the fact that we are of no help to them anymore. I mean, we've been a big help because we're the big country with the big stick that help keep the bad guys away. But they are resigned to the fact that we are of no help anymore. And in spite of the fact that we're in NATO and the UN and all that stuff, we're basically an adversarial country to Europe and every other country throughout the world.
Oh yeah. As I'm seeing in the comments, Pretty in Blue just said DT made us less safe. He did, because our allies are looking at us sideways, going, "Can we trust you? What if we get in a jam? Are you gonna help? Come bail us out?" That's how they're looking at us right now. So if we need them, are they gonna be there for us, or are they gonna be looking at us going, "Okay, so when are you gonna, even if we come to your aid, they're probably wondering what is Donald Trump gonna want for it?"
Well, exactly. And the thing about it is what people don't understand. In NATO, there's something called the Fifth Article, Article
Yep.
5, right? And that means if one of the NATO people are attacked, everybody helps out. That Article 5 has only been used one time, and that was to help us after 9/11. We're the only ones that have benefited from Article 5. And Donald Trump has the audacity to ridicule or poo poo NATO. This dumb motherfucker doesn't even know what NATO's about. All he knows is that Vladimir Putin doesn't like it because he's been excluded, and Donald Trump is trying to make his best girlfriend proud of him. That's all he's trying to do.
Well, yeah, he has no idea. He even said as much. He said he didn't know anything about NATO, but he learned everything he needed to learn in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Um, he thinks that, when they say, well, they're not paying enough. Well, what the actual thing is they're not spending on their own defense a certain percentage of their GDP, spending it to bolster their defense. He thinks it goes into a checking account and that there's an account for NATO somewhere that he can get access to. He doesn't
yeah,
know shit about shit. He doesn't know how things work on the world stage. Hell, he barely knows which way is up at this point.
right. And well, that's everything with Donald Trump. It's all about making money. That's his scoring system to create a value for himself. I made this much money on this. I made that much money on this. I got the ratings on this. And the problem with it is America, our government has never been a profit making machine. In fact, it's the opposite. We are supposed to make a profit. If America is running properly, we take in taxes, we pay for programs and helping the public, and we break even. The problem is with the government now, we certainly don't make a profit and the debt keeps getting bigger. So we're doing something wrong with that regard. And Donald Trump and the Republicans, they call themselves fiscally responsible. They want to lower the debt. But when Donald Trump was in office the first time, he increased it by $7 trillion. And now he says, fuck it, let's just go hog wild. Let's up it 4 trillion. These people aren't fiscally responsible. They're not even really conservatives anymore.
No, they're not. And as far as the debt goes, well, Donald Trump, as far as he's concerned, he views the United States as an unlimited checking account that he can do
Yeah,
whatever he wants. And if he can make it so he pays even less in taxes and funnels more of it into his pocket, great. He can charge the Secret Service for their rooms to stay at Mar-a-Lago to
right.
protect his dumbass. They charge him for the meals, and I would understand if he was charging them, you know, daily rates or cost for food or something. But they're not. They're charging it jacked up rates and all sorts of stuff so he can turn a profit. It's all
Yeah,
about himself. It's all about the grift.
it absolutely is. We've got somebody mentioned here, and we'll bring it up because I think it's important. I don't know how realistic it is, but it says pay attention. There are special elections in Florida, California, and New York. Date is not set. Florida is April 1st, 2025. In the first district, the sixth district, California, April 15th. In Oakland, mayoral election. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of elections. And that's what's going to be interesting. You talked about before how a seat in Iowa flipped. It was always hardcore red, hardcore Republican, hardcore Donald Trump, but it flipped to a Democrat. Being in Iowa yourself, did you see that as kind of uh, 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 an omen of sorts of things to come?
A little bit. The big thing about that seat, that was a seat Donald Trump won by 20 plus points.
Right,
Now the seat was open because our lieutenant governor had resigned. Our
right,
governor, after the election, appointed a new lieutenant governor, and she waited till after the election to pick a safe district so she could pick somebody and then appoint some. It'd be open for a special election. Okay, I'll get a Republican in back in that seat. No big deal. Now, this election didn't change Iowa politics in the state house. It didn't change majorities. Democrats are still fucked here in Iowa for a while. But the seat flipped in part. There wasn't an incumbent sitting in that seat. You didn't have name recognition. It was a local guy, ran on school board issues, ran on education, and the seat flipped. When I say these special elections could change the balance of power, it could. If we take all three, Hakeem Jeffries is speaker. Now,
Right.
do we need Hakeem Jeffries? Maybe not. Maybe we go with Jasmine Crockett, AOC. But the way it looks is it's going to be Hakeem Jeffries. Hell, if we take two of the three, that puts nothing but pressure on Mike Johnson. Even one, they only have three votes if they win all three, and
Right.
then to pass anything. Every
Right.
single one of those is important. There's no incumbent. You know, we if we dial it up, and there's going to be national attention on this. Hopefully, we can get Democrats out and voting. And if we can keep the pressure on Donald Trump, they're going to have to work with Democrats to do anything, or nothing will get done for the next 4 years or 2 years till midterms. Either
Right.
way, it's a good thing for the rest of us, bad thing for Republicans.
Here's the thing that worries me about these elections. I know we've got good possibilities of Democrats winning them in spite of the fact they're the red states. With all the shit that's going on in Florida and throughout the country, Republicans aren't playing well with a lot of folks, even the independents and such. So that's helpful to us. But here's been my fatal flaw since I started doing this when I was looking at the election with Kamala Harris or some of these other things. I was going by logic and common sense. And that's what fucked me up. There is no logic to what's going on now. We're standing outside the box. Crazy shit's happening, shit that makes no sense. And I'm hoping that we can get some sense back when it comes to these special elections because we need that shit right now.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, logic has kind of failed a little bit. Never expected Kamala Harris to lose. Didn't expect to lose the entire Congress, and shouldn't have, except for the fact, in part, that left leaning Democrats did what they did in 2016 and said to us, well, we're not getting everything we want, so fuck you. I
Yeah,
think that was a big chunk of it. And whether or not it played a role, I think her being as involved with Liz Cheney played at least some part. It didn't help. But all in all, we need to do something. And if we keep talking about it, maybe we can at least, even if we don't win them, maybe we can make it be closer than it should for these special elections and scare the Republicans a little bit. They're not willing to walk away from Donald Trump yet because they're not afraid of losing their power yet. And I think
right.
that's where they will eventually walk away is when they get scared of losing their power.
Do you think they're at that point yet? I mean, with these town halls and they're getting annihilated, do you think it's clicking in their minds at all the things that are shifting amongst the public? I mean, he's siding with Vladimir Putin. We know 85 to 90% of the country hate Vladimir Putin in this country. So once they realize Donald Trump is siding with Putin, logic would tell you that they'd step away from Donald Trump. But as I've said, logic doesn't have any place in these days for whatever reason. But do you think they're getting a little nervous yet because of these town halls? Because they have been horrific for them.
I'd say not yet, just because we're only 6 weeks into the new term. We are
Right.
what, 3 months out from the last election, so that
Yeah.
makes us 21 months away from the next general.
Right.
We are too far out yet. Um, they feel safe right now. They think that they can, still cover their ass, that they'll be able to pull it out. Oh, they'll come up with something. Oh, they'll pass the tax cut, and so there'll be a little more money in your pocket. Or I saw something where they're talking about that refund from Doge, the dividend from all of the savings, which really isn't savings. It would just be a new name for a stimulus check, and that would add money to the deficit. But they're hoping they can do things like that can end up shifting the public perception back around in their favor.
Yeah. But with all that's going on now with regards to this budget thing, I know people are terrified of it because the budget that the House is setting up basically is going to take everything away from Medicaid. It's going to affect veterans. It's going to affect food for kids. They're trying to put up reasonable deniability by not actually putting the words in the bill. What's important to understand is this is a blueprint. This isn't the final bill. They're trying to act like it's not Medicaid, it's not kids, it's not veterans, but the fact of the matter, it is. They tried to divert and distract, but the media and the Democrats have made it very clear what it is they're intending to do. And I think people are already getting terrified by the things that Elon Musk is going to do. But I talked to some other people, the more fatalist people that we talk to, and they think it's a foregone conclusion that that bill will pass. And I don't agree because the Senate has to pass it too. And the Senate has an entirely different bill that they've already passed. So why would they pass the House bill? I think we're a ways away from any kind of consensus on a final bill, and they'll probably walk it up to the day, March 14th, when we have to worry about shutting down the country.
Oh yeah, I think it's going to come. We're going to have this back and forth. I think they're going to bring their blueprint up for a vote, and I don't know if it passes even in this House of Representatives. With the three vacancies, they can lose one vote. Now, if he holds true to his word, Mike Turner said he's not voting for anything that's Republican at all. So if he holds true to that, guess what? It's already dead in the water. They're
Yeah.
going to probably need Democrats to pass this. And everyone's saying, well, why isn't Hakeem Jeffries saying more? Why aren't the Democrats, you know, being loud about it? Well, first of all, it's not time yet. They're waiting for them to try to do things on their own, and then when they fail, that's when Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats come in and go, okay, we got to do something. We have to keep the government open. We got to raise the debt limit. So here's the deal. Here's what we will back, and you will get all 215 of our votes. All funding stays the same. Musk out of everything, and you restore things back to the way they were before you started making your cuts. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I think that's where the Democrats come in, and if uh, Republicans can't agree to that, they'll say, "Okay, but the shutdown's on you. You have the votes to pass everything without us. You have the numbers. Do it."
Well, the thing about it is everybody's worried about this shutdown. Are we not in the middle of a shutdown already? I mean, with all these departments shutting down and all these people getting fired, how big a difference is it if we shut it down again? Because we're already in a shutdown that the Republicans have created.
Oh yeah. Did you? Speaking of the firings, did you hear about the one judge in California that told the Office of Personnel Management, "You don't have the authority to fire anybody"?
Yeah, yeah. And then that's the problem, though. A judge can say that, but what if they still do it? That's the problem I have with our government, our DOJ. They've proven to not have any teeth. You can go break the law. The judge can say you'd better not do that or else, but there is no or else. You can hold some people in contempt. You can't hold Trump in contempt. Uh, our DOJ and our legal system is shown to be very weak, and Donald Trump exposed that. And that's the troublesome thing here. They can say whatever they want, but how do you stop them?
Well, yeah, and his order stopped short of telling them you must rehire all of the fired employees. But he's like, never in the history of the universe has the Office of Personnel Management had the ability to fire anybody in other departments. And ultimately, I think that's what's going to end up happening. Is these courts are going to keep saying it. Eventually, there's going to come a point when Republicans have to act. And I know a lot of people out there, at least some of them in the comments, are saying I'm being too optimistic. But there's going to come a point when Republicans have to do something because it's going to affect their own power. That's what I keep coming back to. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have people like Chuck Grassley at 90 fucking one still sitting in the House of Representatives. He only cares about his own power. He doesn't care about actually being a senator at this point. He's fourth in line for the presidency now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The thing about it is that um, maybe you know more about this because I haven't heard. I've been kind of out of the mix a little bit. My wife and I were doing some things, but today was the day that they were going to make a presentation to the Supreme Court regarding the freezing of funds. Now, several courts have already told Donald Trump you can't do that. They haven't responded to it. They haven't unfrozen funds. Then they gave him a midnight deadline the other day, and they took it to the Supreme Court and says we're not going to do it that fast. The Supreme Court was supposed to hear that today. Has the Supreme Court come back with any decision on that? I'm sure I would have heard about it if they had.
I haven't heard anything about it. Yeah, like I said, that they only kicked that can down the road till today.
Today, yeah.
Yeah, and I think I hadn't heard a decision, so I'm assuming based on the way it was written, sounds like the funding may have to be reinstated. Maybe.
But what if he doesn't? I mean, let's talk about Elon Musk. Elon Musk was in a meeting with was the cabinet. It was a cabinet meeting, and he was talking about all the things he was doing, and of course, everybody on the cabinet was not necessarily agreeing with him, but certainly wasn't questioning him. He made the comment that, yeah, we make mistakes sometimes and kind of giggled about it and said, like Ebola, we took the funding off of Ebola, but we got it back on right away. So we took care of that. But then some official from the Ebola committee or whatever it is came out and said, no, he didn't. The funding is still shut down. I mean, these incompetent motherfuckers are firing people they shouldn't fire. Then they come and tell us that they fixed it, but they didn't even fix it.
Yeah, Musk is completely and totally incompetent. He doesn't know what he's doing. Look what he's done with his businesses. Um,
Yeah, they're all in turmoil. They're all losing money at this point.
yeah, it's ridiculous. But they're doing all sorts of stupid shit. We were talking about it on the live, was it last night? About the FAA air traffic controllers. His
Yeah.
grand plan was, well, we fired all of you, but oh shit, we actually need more air traffic controllers than we had. So anybody who took retirement, why don't you come on back if you're still willing to work? Jesus
You know,
Christ. Dumb, dumb
they fire them
motherfucker.
they fire them and then they beg people to come back. Not necessarily the ones they fired. They could have just unfired them. They said, you retired folks or you folks that used to do it, come on back. I mean, you didn't foresee after firing all these people in the FAA, you might be short on these air traffic controllers. Jesus Christ, the ignorance is unbelievable.
Yeah, exactly. Um, it is completely ridiculous. I mean, they fired nuclear safety people that control our uh nuclear weapons. And then they go, oh
Yeah,
shit, we need those. It's the same bullshit Donald Trump did at his first term, except on a bigger scale. Remember with the pandemic response team, the Obama administration set up a pandemic response team full of doctors and infectious disease specialists, said, hey, if there's an issue, we want to be on top of it and deal with it ahead of time before it becomes bad. Donald Trump comes in and goes, we don't pay doctors to sit around and do nothing. We're going to fire all of them. And then if there is an issue, we'll hire them back at the time, and pay for them then. That's just good business.
that's
What?
not good business. I mean, when you're
So
dealing with people's lives, I mean, you saw what RFK Jr. did when he was in the cabinet meeting. Somebody asked him about the measles outbreak in Texas, and it's kind of exploding down there. It's getting bigger all the time. One kid died. It's quite a problem, and all these people are unvaccinated, so they're kind of asking for it. But when asked about it, RFK says, "Yeah, it's no big deal. We get outbreaks every year. I'll look into it." I mean, he was very nonchalant about it and really not interested in it, and was so reminiscent of Donald Trump with COVID. Oh, it's not a big deal. It'll be over in the spring. It's a hoax. We're not going to do anything. The problem is when you do that with a epidemic, the things tend to explode. That's why we haven't dealt with epidemics much prior to Donald Trump. We hadn't really had a pandemic like that for 100 years previously. But then Donald Trump does what the fuck he does, which is nothing, and it goes crazy. We lose a million plus people. And now RFK Jr. is making the same fucking mistake with measles and whatever else comes up.
Well, yeah. And then it's like I said last night in the live. Isn't it something like 50% of the cases out of the in Texas are kids under 5?
Yeah, yeah.
Kids
And
under
measles
5
is
who
well.
should have already had vaccines.
You have to understand. In the '60s, when I was young, I was born in 1960, so 65. I'm in kindergarten. We were getting shots all the time in school. Kids would always get chicken pox. Kids would get measles even back then. But then we got the vaccinations, and eventually it came to the point where nobody got measles because the vaccinations did the job. It hasn't been till recently that people have decided not to take vaccinations that we're starting to get these things coming back. You would think somebody would take a fucking hint once in a while, but they insist on not giving their kids these vaccinations, and they're getting sick, and some are dying. It's fucking appalling. That's child negligence.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't horrible until COVID. Donald Trump puts this plan together to rush the vaccine out, Operation Warp Speed. We're going to come up with it. We're going to get that vaccine. We're going to get it going. We're going to make it great. All that kind of bullshit. Okay, but then the vaccine comes out. After he is has lost the election, suddenly they don't want to take it. The Republicans don't because it's being pushed by Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. How do we know it's safe? How do we know it's safe? It's not safe. You want to know how we know it's safe? And this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory from me. But you want to? Here's one of the reasons I knew it was safe. Who took it first?
Yeah. Donald Trump took it.
Well, they were giving it to politicians and the military.
Right.
They weren't releasing it to the general public first. They gave it to the people in power.
Right.
That's how you knew it was safe.
Well, and that's a perfect example of what the Republicans do. They don't necessarily tell the truth. They create a narrative, and if that works for them, they spread it far and wide, and they keep pounding on it till people believe it. And there are dumb people in red states that buy into anything they're told. Here you've got a guy like Donald Trump or some of these other politicians that tell you, no, vaccines are bad, yet they got the fucking vaccine. You would think that would be enough for them to question it, but it's not.
Oh yeah, and it makes no sense. You got these people in red states who life constantly fucking sucks. They're the ones that need the federal assistance. They need welfare. They need Medicaid. They need Medicare. Whatever the case may be. And then they look around and go, "Why does my life suck?" Oh, it's those Democrats' fault. Democrats
Yeah,
haven't been in power in some of these states in 20 plus years.
right,
It's
exactly.
unreal.
I talked to Ed. He's down in Tennessee. Democrats don't even run against the Republicans because it's pointless. You know, it's
Yeah.
interesting. If they did cut Medicaid, I don't know if the red states understand this or Republicans in general. People would lose their health care, obviously, and that's terrible. Kids and elderly folks. But one of the things that basically keeps rural hospitals alive is Medicaid. So if Medicaid's not there, these rural hospitals are going to go away. So if you're a Trumplafuck living in the middle of nowhere and you have a heart attack, well, you got a 2 hour drive to get saved, and that's not going to happen. It won't be until they start taking these hospitals away and they need them that they're going to realize, oh, we fucked up.
Yeah, but again, by that point, it's too late.
It is too
The
late.
damage is done. It is going to take decades to fix all of the damage that has been caused by this administration, this dumb fuck, and the dumb fucks that follow him.
That is the frustrating thing. People like you and I and everybody out here listening to this live, we understand what the prospects are if some of these things happen. But like you said, it's like these people have to get burned down, kicked in the ass, and on the verge of death before they even realize it. How can people be that fucking thick? Have that little foresight to understand that they're putting themselves in peril just so they can own the libtards? It's absolutely stupid.
It is, but because most of them don't know shit about shit. They don't know how this shit works. They don't know how, the outcomes, and they're not going to see it until it comes back to bite them. Because us telling them they're going to say, "Oh, you're just trying to confuse us. We know what's really going on." Doesn't matter what facts we give them. It doesn't matter what we show them. They won't believe it till they see it for themselves. It boggles the mind. But that's how they are. They think that, like, we tell them that, oh, it's going to cut your hospitals in your small town communities. Oh, you're just trying to scare us.
Right.
No, we're trying to tell you exactly what the fuck's going to happen. And then when it happens, what the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like every day there's some shit show, some event that causes people concern or dismay or even upset about. We've got this little press conference that Donald Trump has done with Zelensky, and it puts everything in Europe in an unstable situation. The entire world is unstable now because of what Donald Trump is doing. But we've got another thing coming up here in this country that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But Donald Trump has said that he's going to enact these uh, these tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China on uh, March 5th or 4th. That's Monday, I believe. And my question to you is, do you think he'll actually do it? Because what people have to understand is Donald Trump probably isn't excited about the tariffs because he backed off of it last time. It's just how he negotiates. I'm going to threaten you and you're going to back down and do what I want to do. But people aren't doing that anymore. So we get to March 4th. Does he invoke those? Does he double down and invoke those tariffs?
I think it in part depends on which of his advisors has his ear between here and there.
Yeah.
Um, he might try putting them on because obviously he knows better than us. He knows what the tariffs are going to do because you have a toddler with dementia. That's
Yeah.
really what we're
Exactly.
dealing with. He's a toddler with dementia playing president. He doesn't even know. Did you see him reading that letter that he got from King Charles?
No, I didn't.
Yeah.
What did he say?
Oh, he was. I think that was in when he was with Macron. They gave him the letter. It was hand delivered by I think it was Macron, but I could be wrong. And he sits there. He's holding it. He's looking over, kind of nodding his head as he's reading it. Reading it. Gets down. Oh, I see. He's got a big beautiful signature down here. Then he hands it back to Macron. What does that say? What does that paragraph say? Motherfucker can't read.
No, he can't read. And I'm surprised King Charles wants him over there because I don't think Queen Elizabeth liked that motherfucker at all. I think
No,
she, I'm thinking maybe they think the king can talk him out of the tariffs, but Donald Trump has no respect for anybody. So here's something Megan is asking. She says, Trump said blue states will disappear. What does that mean? You have to understand when Donald Trump says something, it's just off the top of his head. There is no plan, no strategy to what he says. But basically, he's trying to suggest the red states are going to um, flourish and the blue states will just kind of fade away, which is exactly the opposite of what's going to happen. The red states are going to burn the fuck down. They're the ones in the most trouble with these impending economy.
well, I took something different from that. What I think he meant, and it's similar to what he said going into the election. I could win California by 5 million votes if they counted it fairly. I can win New
Yeah.
York. I think that's what he was talking about is he thinks come the midterms that all of these blue state elections are going to flip red.
Red.
That
Okay. Yeah,
he's
that
going
makes sense
that
too.
he's going to end up having way more power in Congress and then he won't need the Democrats to do anything. What's going to probably happen is Democrats take the House, they possibly get the Senate. At best, they get the Senate. At worst, I think they pick up some seats. And he ain't going to get shit done in the last 2 years of his term.
No. Well, that's one thing I've said. Even if we won the House and the Senate, the best thing we can hope for is nothing gets done in the final 2 years. Because unless there is a supermajority voting on a bill, Donald Trump's not going to sign it if it's beneficial to Democrats or beneficial to anybody but him. So the best we can hope for now is that nothing gets done between now and 2028. And I think the members of the House, the Republican Party, it's funny, Old Soul told me that she talked to some Trump-a-bucks and they said, "Oh, we got you now because we got control of the House." And she said, Wait a minute. You had control of the House for the last 2 years, and they had no clue. They're that oblivious. They're that stupid. When they had the power, they couldn't get anything done. Now that they have the power in the House for the first 6 weeks, they've got nothing done and no prospects to get anything done because they need the Democrats to help them. Um, that's the saddest thing, I think, with Donald Trump getting elected. Over and above all the negative things he's going to do, we are at no point in the next 4 years, as long as these fucks have power, that we are going to be able to start digging out of this hole. You've said it before, it's going to take years, maybe decades to dig out of this hole, but we're going to have to wait until Donald Trump is fucking done fucking this up. We can't start now, and that's disappointing.
Yeah. And I want to touch on something I just saw in the comments. Michael says, "You guys think there will be midterms?" Yes, there will be midterms. They don't have the
Yeah,
vote to stop the midterms. Midterms will happen. Um, there's not going to be any way they can prevent the midterms. It's going to be business as usual. Um, but no, as far as this goes, Donald Trump could fuck things up. Will said apparently the Atlanta Federal Reserve is predicting a negative GDP for the first quarter. That's the beginnings of a recession. And if we're
yeah,
talking recession, it could end up being as bad as a potential depression. And I've said before, if he fucks the economy as bad as it looks like he potentially could be or could do, if the Democrats do it right, they could end up having control of the levers of Congress for 20 years.
yeah,
Imagine the good we could do with 20 years of unified power. But the Democrats have to have a decent and a good message. But it has to be a simple message. FDR won on the New Deal, but it was down to 3 points. He kept it very short, easy to digest, and was all about helping people and getting people back to work into good paying jobs and having, things be taken care of again like they should have always been.
yeah. Well, don't you
That's how
think?
the
Don't you think
Democrats
that?
could win.
Don't you think that's where the Democrats failed? They were trying to be above it all, trying to say the right things, fighting against Donald Trump. And when it came down to it, people voted for it because of their pocketbooks, and rightfully so, because the younger folks in this country are struggling because they don't get paid shit. Rent is high, and they have to live with their parents a lot longer because the middle class and the poorer class and the younger folks just aren't making enough money to even fucking survive. That's why I've said our biggest problem now isn't the prices of things, it's what we pay people. We don't pay people enough. There's never been any motivation to do it. And I think the Democrats have to take a lesson from this. Instead of saying we hate Donald Trump, so we're going to beat him, or we're going to bring back the level of decency, you've got to literally sit down and tell them what you're going to do, and tell them over and over again, so people can place some hope in something. And that's where the Democrats failed in 2024.
Well, in part, Kamala Harris had a good message about what she wanted to do. She would talk about housing credits and making homes affordable and raising the minimum wage. She was saying good things, but then there was everything else she was also bringing in, having to talk about all of the negative of Donald Trump, how bad he is, his dementia, how his narcissism, all of the shit. Her message about the economy got lost in the mix of everything. They need to focus on kitchen table issues, getting it back to basics about how it's going to be good for the everyday people. And I think that is where her message got lost in there.
Yeah. I kind of hope he puts those tariffs on, not because of the strife it's going to put people through and the problems it's going to put them through. The faster Donald Trump can fuck up, like what he did with Zelensky, the faster they're going to have to make a change. And people will say, no, the Republicans will stick with it forever. And I think you and I agree. Not forever. They have stuck with it longer than I imagined. Logic didn't play well there, but there's going to come a point with as bad as Donald Trump is and the biggest messes he's making, they're going to have to do something with the situation. And I wouldn't be surprised if after today they're not talking about it seriously. They're maybe not ready to do it yet, but they're talking about it.
Oh, I think they've been talking about it behind closed doors since day one.
Yeah,
I think
probably.
there's at least parts of it are getting, they're talking about, okay, where do we have to draw the line? Where is the line at? When do we have to make a change? How close to the election do we make the change? Because we gotta appear tough against Trump, close enough to the election that that's what people remember. But we also want to get as much of our shit through as we can before the election, so we can run on the shit we did, or we can get our shit done. They're trying to game it both ways.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
it's upsetting watching the games that are being played. And do you feel like right now that the Democrats are starting to pick up some traction and actually do something? Because that's been the big complaint up to this point. Elon Musk doing whatever he wants, Donald Trump doing whatever he wants. The courts say stop, they don't stop. And the Democrats seem to be pretty passive about this whole thing. I mean, there's a handful that are talking tough, but the vast majority are just kind of sitting back and maybe expecting to watch them burn down. Maybe they expect that, but it's not good for the Democrats to seem weak in this situation. We need a
they,
hero.
well, they do seem weak, but at the same point, what do you want them to do? I
Yeah,
mean, other than come out and rant and rave, which is about all they can do at this point, they're not um, in the majority. They in either chamber of Congress. The best thing they can do is filibuster shit, but even filibuster only works to a point,
yeah,
um, because cabinet picks still get through, Supreme Court nominations still get through, and at any point, if Republicans decide to be gutsy enough, they could jettison the filibuster.
yeah.
Um,
I hope they do.
I mean, they're kind of making a stand, but at the same point, they're kind of sitting back going, we gave you everything. We showed you exactly what was going to happen. We've all said it. We said it. We said it. And now what? People are wondering, well, where's Joe Biden? Why isn't he saying anything? Why isn't he doing anything? The American
What's he going to
people, to
do?
some extent, and the Democrats told him to go take a flying leap. They said, hey,
Yeah,
we don't want you
absolutely.
anymore. So he
Ka-
stepped
Ka-
down.
Kamala and Joe really don't have anything they could say. I am a little disappointed in the other past presidents, Obama, Clinton, even George W. Bush. They know what's going on. They know how bad it is, but they don't say a fucking word. And that to me is cowardice. Everybody's afraid of Donald Trump. So when we're talking about getting something done with getting Donald Trump out of there, and I think we both agree that Republicans are going to ultimately have to do that. They're trying to figure out a way how to do it without being afraid of Donald Trump. And the problem is we don't know what they're afraid of. Are they afraid of primaries? For fuck's sake, Jesus Christ! His track record on primaries isn't very solid. Why would they be afraid of that?
No, I don't think they're afraid of getting primaries. As for the past presidents, a lot of them aren't uh, saying anything because that's what you do. You don't speak on the current administration. You respect the office because the people before you did that when you were in the office. As far as like elected members of Congress, I don't think they're afraid of primaries because at this point, both sides have gerrymandered the hell out of everything.
Yeah,
They're almost all in safe districts. It's I don't know. I think they're waiting for that point. We got the funding deadline coming up. I think that's when Democrats are going to come out of the woodwork. They're going to come in, stand strong like they've done in the past, and say, "Hey, like I said earlier, okay, here's what we want to get our 215 votes out of the House." And they'll be on the same page in the Senate. Say, "Okay, here's our 47 votes in the Senate,"
right.
and that's when they get something accomplished. They're letting Republicans burn it down so they can come in later and be the adults in the room.
Right.
But unfortunately, everybody wants something to be done right now, today, yesterday, or whatever. That's not how politics works. And we got to wait for the moment to be right for them to do anything. Because if they came out now and showed their cards, Republicans may let it burn down just because.
Yeah. Well, nothing happens fast in government unless, of course, you're Elon Musk. Then it happens in an hour, firing thousands of people and cutting funding and all that sort of thing. You think they're waiting for a specific point when public opinion reaches a point of no return for Donald Trump? I mean, he's losing popularity every day. It's dropping like a rock. Elon Musk, he's got maybe 20% people that support him. Um, I think they're waiting for a moment in time when they feel like it's a good gamble because they're only going to piss off so many people, and that they might get some positive response from people by kicking Donald Trump out. I think they're waiting for that. I don't know what that point is, though.
Yeah, they're watching, they're waiting. Um, I said all along, I think the Republicans are trying to decide behind closed doors, and Donald Trump will be blindsided when this happens.
Yeah,
When they think it's close enough to the election that them standing up to Donald Trump is going to curry them favor in the election, and not have people think that they're the reason they had to make the change by giving him up everything all the way along.
yeah,
Um, that it's all a shell game. They're trying to say, "Hey, look over there while I'm over here," and it's all about maintaining their own power. I just think they haven't come to that point when they think it is an anchor around their neck. They don't realize the majority of Americans really aren't on their side yet because they're still riding the high of this last election.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's interesting. I think we figured out now. Hopefully, everybody's figured this out. We wonder why Republicans do what they do for Donald Trump, why they vote the way they vote. I think it's pretty clear now. The only reason Republicans, maybe even Democrats, vote the way they do, it's not for the good of the country. It's not for the good of the people. It's not even to support the president. It's simply to maintain their seat in power, the money, the power, and their position. That's all they care about. And that's troubling because that's contrary to why they should be in those positions. They're there to work for us, but apparently that's not clear to the vast majority of people in Congress.
No, it's not. Like I keep going back to Chuck Grassley, but that man's
Yeah.
been in the fucking Senate longer than I've been alive,
Yeah.
and he wants to run again when he will be 90 fucking six.
Yeah.
It's about
Hopefully,
his own
hopefully.
personal power. He doesn't know, he's not in our same reality anymore.
No.
When he bought his house, housing was affordable. It was only like 20% of your income, 30% maybe. You could get an affordable loan. You had a decent paying job. Now housing's like 60, 70% of your income, and you're struggling every which way. He doesn't know what it's like anymore. Um, but he doesn't want to let go of that lever of power. And that's the problem with a lot of these people on both sides of the aisle. And it's just as bad for the Democrats. You got Nancy Pelosi who won't go away, Chuck Schumer, a few of the others that um, they keep holding on, and we need younger, fresher blood in this idea or in this race. We
Well,
have
yeah, well, I was just going to say, Frank Capolino made a comment in the comments. He said Eric Swalwell should be the Democratic leader in the House, or Jamie Raskin and Chris Murphy, or Chris Van Hollen, or Sheldon Whitehouse should be the Democratic leader in the Senate. And I don't disagree with him. I think all those people are great. I love Sheldon Whitehouse. The only thing Sheldon Whitehouse has going against him, he's an old white man, but he is sharp and he's strong and he says what he means and he means what he says. We got Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, and they're in power because they've been there a million years. Um, how do you make that change? I mean, how does that change occur? Do we have to wait till they die? Wait till they retire before younger people can take these positions? Or can Congress just say, we're tired of your shit, let's get somebody new?
Well, part of the problem is even look what they did with Dianne Feinstein's seat.
Yeah.
She was in her 90s to the point where she didn't know where she was because numerous times she was supposed to vote and they had to tell her just say yes. And she was going to start debating the bill. Her daughter had to go to court to get power of attorney to pay her bills
While she
because
was in the Senate.
while she was in the Senate, yes. And then she dies. And instead of letting the governor appoint somebody and then running a primary to see who it should be, they come up with a plan for Katie Porter and Adam Schiff to go from being two Democratic members of the House to one of them will be the senator from California because we know it's going to be a Democrat. We can guarantee a Democrat's going to take the seat. And that's what happens. What we need, got to get loud in the local Democratic parties, in your state Democratic Party, and we need people to run in primaries against these people. You know, if you get somebody who would run a primary against Pelosi in, say, San Francisco, guarantee you, doesn't matter who's got a D next to their name, they're going to win San Francisco. We
Yeah.
don't need name recognition there.
No.
If we run
And
a
I would,
if we primary her out, great.
right. Well, I was disappointed when Katie Porter ran against Adam Schiff for the Senate seat. Adam Schiff had it game from the beginning because he was supported by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. He was going to win no matter what. And the problem is Katie Porter ran. She wasn't going to win, and when she didn't win, she no longer was in the House. And she was a strong advocate for decency in the House of Representatives. So while we got Schiff in the Senate, we lost in the House. I'm not saying we lost the seat because we got a Democrat back there, but we lost a serious politician that was actually doing some good. And I blame Nancy Pelosi for that bullshit. That shouldn't have
Oh,
happened that way.
oh yeah, I do too. And as far as that goes, I don't think either of them should have ran for that Senate seat.
No.
Realistically, why did we need to move a Democrat from the House into the Senate to cover that seat? It wasn't
Well,
like we were running, you know, like we were in a Joe Manchin situation in West Virginia where it was a really popular Democrat in a red state where maybe you have a chance of making a pickup. It's California. California is going to go blue almost 95% of the time as far, in a statewide race. It was safe.
Well, and the thing about it is Gavin Newsom had the option to appoint somebody, and he was going to appoint somebody. He was going to appoint a very qualified black woman to be in that situation. Now, she would have just rode out the term, which was a couple of years, maybe 3 years or whatever, and Pelosi and Schiff and everybody was else was afraid that okay, Schiff needs to be the senator, but if we let this black woman go in there and be the senator for 2 years, now she's in the incumbent, and maybe Schiff won't win. Whether we're talking about Republicans or Democrats, it's all about power, it's all about position, and they don't give a fuck about anything else. They don't care if it burns something else down. I got to get mine. And that's what troubles me about Schiff. I mean, he's a good guy. He does a good job. He's a little stiff for my taste, but this had nothing to do with what was good for the country or the Congress. It was all about an individual game like Schiff or Pelosi, and that's frustrating because when the Democrats do it, people always want to blame the Republicans, but the Democrats have all kinds of fucking problems too.
Oh, they do. They do, without a doubt. I mean, uh, Chuck Schumer, I thought he was going to be a much better majority leader in the Senate. He proved to be pretty ineffective and pretty weak
Yeah, he's
comparative to what
very
I
weak.
expected. He is no Mitch McConnell by any means.
No, he's
And,
not.
you know, hell, he's not even as good as Nancy Pelosi in my mind. Nancy Pelosi wouldn't have let Joe Manchin do half the bullshit he did. Wouldn't have let Kristen Sinema get away with the bullshit they did.
Right.
There wouldn't be bills that got killed by people of your own party.
I mean, let's be honest. When Nancy Pelosi was the Speaker of the House, she did a good job. She was tough. She rammed it down the Republicans' throat. She did a good job. And it's not that I'm faulting her for anything about not doing a good job, but your expiration date is up. You're older than Joe Biden. Just step aside. You got all the money in the world. You've had the power. You've had the fame. Why not relax and move aside? Because, and I've said this over and over again, we really need to get younger people in there because they should have the right to determine their destiny. Now we got old fucks like Chuck Grassley. I mean, hell, Chuck Grassley. I don't know if you knew this. He lives in a beautiful old 100-year-old house. He had the fucker built. So that's how long he's been in this fucking house. People live
Yeah,
in 100-year-old houses, and he was there to build. I'm kidding, of course, but we
not
really
by much.
no, not by much. But the thing about it is that we've got Nancy Pelosi either supporting abortion or going against abortion. This woman hasn't had a baby in 50 years, and she's not going to have another one. Why should she determine what's going to happen with the younger people in this country, or income levels or minimum wage? They're so out of touch. It's ridiculous. Donald Trump is out of touch, and he's stupid. Nancy Pelosi's out of touch. She's smart, but she's out of touch. She doesn't know what real life is, and she needs to go away and get somebody stronger in there.
Yeah, and I think it was Old Soul was talking to you about it. This idea that they don't have to necessarily go away, but just retire. Let somebody else get the seat, then become like an elder statesman and teach, teach
Yeah,
the next generation about how she did everything she did. But no, the minute she retires or dies or whatever happens, and she's not in that seat, whatever she knew about how the institution of government works is going with her. She's not going to pass it on to anybody else.
yeah. No, they're not. Again, it just goes back to their own power, and that's all that matters. You think when this comes all crashing down, um, the Republicans are going to take a pounding, but I think the Democrats are going to take a pounding too. Those of the Democrats that have chose to do nothing at all. Do you think this is a situation where it's going to be an ultimate disaster, but it's something that has to happen? And then on the other side, we see some dramatic changes in what our Congress looks like and how we do business. Do you think this is an inflection point where things change dramatically? I'm hoping that's the case, but I don't know.
I do. I hope so. I think ultimately Democrats, provided they don't fuck themselves up, because, well, they seem to do that. Uh, I've been saying they could have power for 20 years. This may be what has to happen in order for us to shift progressive, to move the goal, to move the center line farther left.
Yeah,
Because right now, what they consider middle ground is actually right at center
right,
worldwide.
right.
I think ultimately we're going to come out of this on the other side. Nick, it's not going to be come 2028, we elect uh, a Democrat with a favorable Congress, and in 10 days they can fix everything.
No,
This is going to be similar to what it's going to take somebody, a couple of terms, and it may take a Democrat for 2 terms, their VP for 2 terms, and that person's VP for 2 terms before we fix it all. It could
yeah,
take 6 terms to get through and fix everything. Um, because there's so much damage that we have to do or that we have to fix. We have to fix our minimum wage back to what it used to be, a livable wage that a family of 4 can pay their bills on. You know,
yeah,
Nobody in this country should be hungry. That's what food stamps was for. It was to make sure people could eat, regardless. We had all of these safety nets put in place, and the Republicans, being how this master and manipulative group that they are, They have found a way to take everything and twist how everything works, and convince the American people that even the plain English isn't what it really is.
Yeah. I hope it doesn't take 6 terms because if it goes 6 terms to fix this thing, if I'm still alive, I'll be 90. Chuck Grassley will be 117. That's too long to fucking wait. We need to pick the speed up here a little bit.
Well, hopefully Chuck Grassley won't be in the Senate at 117, 118, whatever. But if they have their way, God help us, there
You know,
could still be a fucking Grassley in the Senate.
Michael Zena, who writes into the podcast frequently, he said, looking at Trump today, I saw fear. I had the impression he was told to do or act like that. I think he's incredibly compromised. What I saw with him was exactly how narcissists act. When you push back, they get angry and they get flustered and they become unhinged and they say stupid shit. And that's exactly what happened. But with his ties to Putin, or whoever else, Elon Musk, do you think, I mean, this is a stupid question. I know what you're going to say. Do you think Donald Trump is truly that compromised?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question.
Donald
You,
Trump is compromised. Um, I think, I don't know who it was that got in his ear, but he got in, somebody got in his ear and said, well, you can push Zelensky around, you get this, that, and the third, and America will look strong, you'll look tough, and Zelensky's weak, he'll cave easy, you'll walk out of this, it'll be the easiest thing you've ever done. And then he's completely surprised because that's not how Zelensky is. And he came back in and, got his ass kicked.
yeah. A lot of people are suggesting that Russia and Vladimir Putin are cheering and dancing in the streets because of what happened during that press conference. But here's what I don't understand. They may be happy that Zelensky, they think, got embarrassed. The fact is, Donald Trump got embarrassed. Zelensky looked strong. Donald Trump looked weak. But the only way Vladimir Putin wins in this situation is if Donald Trump cuts the deal and weakens Ukraine. Now, the fact that Donald Trump won't be giving them any more money, he said that as much. If you don't sign the deal, we're down, we're out. So he said, we're not giving them any more money. But we know Europe gives them a lot of money, more money than America does. As long as the fighting continues, if if Putin had the upper hand, he would have won by now. He's losing hundreds of thousands of troops. He's going broke. How does Vladimir Putin win after this situation? He's back in the same spot he was. It's just that America is not going to be funding them. And if Europe pumps it up and gives him more money, he's still in the same situation he was in before Donald Trump was president.
Well, he thinks he's winning here because we're not backing him, right? Because we're not backing Zelensky. Except, again, Donald Trump's a dumbass, doesn't know how anything works. Congress has the purse. They can
Yeah.
still pass funding for Ukraine around Donald Trump, and he'll have to spend the money. He'll have to send the funding to Ukraine.
But won't they have to do a super majority though? Because
Yeah,
he could veto it.
but they've passed all other funding bills for Ukraine and stuff with those levels of majority. The votes
Yeah.
are there if the
Yeah.
Democrats are willing to play ball. But the thing is, what Donald Trump didn't, and Putin don't realize is, even without us, if the rest of Europe, bands together, they can do a lot without us, and they can find ways of supporting Ukraine. Russia's getting its ass kicked on a daily basis by a country they should have, according to all of the measurable metrics, they should have beaten in weeks. We're what, three
Yeah.
years in now?
Yeah. And they're taking a pounding. Russia's taking a pounding. And if Ukraine gets enough money from Europe, they can continue doing what they're doing. And Zelensky, I really think Donald Trump was playing Zelensky like he played. kids in the schoolyard, in college, in his business. He thinks he can, I'm the bigger, tougher guy, so I can scare you into submission and then he'll just give me my way. This is how Donald Trump's led his life, all of his life. And I think he's confused that it's not working. Why isn't this guy bending to me? Every Republican in Congress bends to me, but this guy isn't bending to me. And that's why he got angry and that's why he got unhinged. That's the one thing about narcissists. They're all reactionary, they're all emotional, and they will burn every bridge, scorch every inch of earth, and say shit they don't mean to say, and they will fuck up. And today, during that press conference, he fucked up big time.
Oh yeah, he did. And JD Vance didn't do anything to save it either by coming in and saying, Zelensky, you just need to show the proper gratitude. Zelensky's shown nothing but gratitude for all of the assistance we've given, every time we've given it and everything else. But ultimately, they're in the middle of a war. They need what they need to survive, whether that's humanitarian aid, whether that's military equipment, both probably. And you can only say thank you so many times, but what else was Zelensky supposed to do
Yeah.
other than what, bend over and let somebody else by agreement take all of the minerals and everything out of his country? That's what Putin is wanting to do. He wants to take over Ukraine for those minerals himself.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically what Donald Trump was planning. He didn't want to help them at all. He wanted the minerals. And I think the deal ultimately is we'll get the minerals, we won't help them. Russia can come in and we'll split up Ukraine. Because that's how Donald Trump keeps score. How much did I make on this deal? Um, I think that Donald Trump didn't start the shit show in that conference. I think JD Vance did, and maybe he did it intentionally. JD Vance went in there and went after Zelensky. Donald Trump saw that and he goes, "Well, I can't have JD looking stronger than me, so I got to ramp this shit up and admonish Zelensky so I can show I'm the tough guy." And I think it just spun out of control at that point. People have to understand if you watch that video, there has never been anything like that in diplomacy in the history of this country. This was unprofessional, amateurish, stupid, and embarrassing. We as a country should be horribly embarrassed by what happened in that press conference.
Oh yeah, we should. Um, and if what you said, if that is exactly how Donald Trump was thinking, is that JD was looking tougher than me and stronger than me, this will be one of the last times we see JD Vance for a while around Donald Trump in any sort of high profile setting.
Well, you know as well as anybody that when the negative stuff hits him, and it no doubt already has, Donald Trump will blame JD Vance because that's all he ever does. And it's probably good that there's some kind of rift between the two of them. JD Vance proved one thing. He went to Harvard. He's smart. That motherfucker's not smart. What he did and the way he did it was absolutely ignorant. He went there and he said, "You should be more grateful." JD Vance said, "You should be more grateful." Well, if you look at JD Vance's track record, he voted against sending money to Ukraine. So what should Zelensky be grateful to fucking JD Vance about? JD Vance hasn't done shit for Zelensky.
Well, yeah, that's just it. Like, I think he forgets that his voting record in Congress is public record.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and some of that's got to come back to haunt him. So if this is the thing though everybody talks about. If the Republicans see the light somehow, it seems impossible, but if they see the light when Donald Trump is more of a liability than he is an asset, and they feel brave enough to kick his ass out, that would theoretically put in JD Vance as the president, being the vice president. But I think just as many people are fearful and are afraid of JD Vance and the Republican Party as they are Donald Trump. So what do they do? Do they try to get rid of both of them? Is that even possible?
I don't think they try to get rid of them both. I think they try to salvage JD Vance. If they make a play, I think somewhere around the midterms, my gut is telling me that they make a move to put JD Vance in as president. they're going to make a move, whether it's the 25th Amendment, whether it is impeach and remove. They may impeach and remove him ahead of the election, trying to save their own congressional power. Throw J.D. Vance in there so he can ride out the term to get people used to the idea of President Vance. But I think they're going to try to ride it out with Vance. I don't think they go get rid of both because that would mean Speaker of the House becomes president. Or, depending on how they stage it, if they wait long enough for JD to get his own VP pick in, it would be that guy
Yeah.
to become president. And I say
White
guy
guy.
because
Definitely a white guy.
because he's a Republican. It won't
Right.
be a woman, just probably not. Maybe it'll be Sarah Palin, but that'd be about it.
Wow.
Maybe
I don't think
Marjorie
they can
Taylor
reach
Greene.
back that far. Yeah, Margie. Oh,
But
Jesus Christ.
no, I think they make the play to remove Trump around the midterms one way or the other. Either they do it, I I think it will be ahead of the election, or more than likely ahead because they think by removing him it's gonna be favorable for them in the election. I don't know for sure if they would make that move after, unless Donald Trump is getting really unhinged. They might try to do it in that 2-month window between election and the new Congress coming in, um, just because that way they could remove Trump. Either way, I think they remove Vance ahead to give people 2 years to get used to the idea of having Vance as president.
Yeah.
Um, the last thing they want, though, is they don't want it to be the Democrats that remove Trump.
Right. Well, that's probably true. Don't you think there's a possibility that it happens even faster than that? I mean, with how fast things are going with Elon Musk and the disaster economically that we're going to feel because of the things he does, the economy goes to shit. Donald Trump continues to embarrass us on an international stage. Um, I mean, James Carville said that the Republican Party is going to implode in the next 30 to 60 days. Is it possible it gets so bad they go, oh, fuck, enough is enough. We got to get them out of here?
I would say no, because of, I'm looking at it going, because of them wanting to hold on to their own power. But with this Republican Party, anything's possible. 30 to 60 days, if the economy if they're already talking a 1.5% reduction in GDP, in the 2 months into the Trump administration,
Yeah,
that's major economic red flags. The economy keeps tanking. If they're already feeling the pressure that they could lose and lose huge in the midterms without making that change, whenever they think that pressure is on loud enough and strong enough, that's when they make their move. It's when they're backed into that corner and they don't see any other way to get reelected.
let me ask you this. Over the last couple of years, we've actually, since the election in 2020, you and I both felt that at different times the Republican Party would abandon Donald Trump because he's such a liability. And every time we've said that, it's not happened because logic doesn't come into play here. They could have saved themselves a lot of trouble by abandoning him in 2020 and trying to build somebody else up. But Kevin McCarthy and other people decided not to do that. Is it possible that these Republicans are so dumb and they just ride the horse till the end, whatever that might be, whether I still question whether he can survive mortally between now and 2028. But even if he does, is it possible they just ride this into the fucking ground and burn everything down?
That is entirely possible. They are pretty dumb and they believe their own hype. Uh, if they come to the internal conclusion that he is helping, not hurting, they will stick with him until that point. And they are at least some of them are weighing that whole thing out every which way, trying to figure out how much is he helping versus how much is he hurting. And then they're weighing the 30% of the Republican base, the MAGA base,
Yeah,
that won't vote for anybody other than Trump, and they won't vote for any Republican that badmouths Trump.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
there there is math, there is, polls going on behind the scenes. They're looking at it, but they may feel that they have no choice but to hold on. But I think ultimately they will probably have to make a change.
Do you think Donald Trump's approval rating drops after this little performance in the Oval Office? Do you think that takes a hit then? Is that
Oh,
enough?
I is it enough to take a hit? Probably. Um, I mean, it just depends. How are people looking at it right now? A lot of them are, you know, how many people were surprised by what he did? You
Yeah,
know, we come to expect this kind of bullshit from Donald Trump. This is who he
yeah,
is. He fucks things up all the time. People on our side of the aisle that are far enough left, we already have an unfavorable opinion. It's the it's the moderate Republicans and the people in the middle that they're the ones that really need to be polled. They're the ones that we need to watch out for. They're the ones that have to come around and realize how bad these Republicans are fucking everything up.
yeah, absolutely. Somebody said in the comments, today was the most embarrassing thing. How many times does Zelensky need to express gratitude? He has even congratulated when Trump won. Narcissistic behavior today. And that's what Donald Trump insists on. I don't know if you remember. Do you remember the first cabinet meeting in Donald Trump's first term in 2017? Do you remember that at all? How that went? How that started off? Let me remind
No.
you. They're all sitting around the cabinet. It's on television, and everybody in that cabinet had to take a turn talking about how great Donald Trump was. Donald Trump needed that adulation so bad that he went around the room and said, "Say something nice about me." That's how bad Donald Trump is. He is desperate for praise and adulation. And if you want to get anywhere with Donald Trump, that's what you got to do. You got to bend the knee, kiss his ring, and tell him how great he is. And Zelensky's not willing to do that. I mean, they went in there specifically to embarrass Zelensky, and Zelensky's a good leader. He's a strong man, and he doesn't take shit, nor should he. And it just didn't work with him. And that's what pissed off Donald Trump.
Oh yeah. I mean, Donald Trump wants everyone around him to kiss the ring, to like you said, tell him how much they love him, how great he is. That's why he's still holding rallies. That's why
Yeah,
he's doing all of the stuff. He never wanted to stop running for president. I think I said it even before the election. I don't think he wanted to actually win. I think he would have been happier if he would have lost the election. He could come out, claim that he, you know, was cheated, and said, "I'm running in 28," and he could keep holding the rallies where he had the cheering crowds and he had the fundraising. I think that's what he ultimately wanted. And now that he's got to do the job, he's got no interest in being president. You saw that cabinet meeting where it looked like he was completely uninterested, out of it, playing on his phone. He
yeah, he
doesn't want to
doesn't.
put the work in.
He doesn't want to work at all. Alberta Gold says you folks need to keep DJT triggered. We out here need to know how far we need to go to correct the situation. Um, and I think Alberta is absolutely right. There is one strategy in breaking Donald Trump, and that's keeping him triggered. He was triggered in that press conference. Uh, he reacts to being embarrassed or made to look stupid. He reacts badly when it does that. We need to keep him triggered. We need to keep him embarrassed every fucking day because it will break him ultimately.
Oh yeah. Um, and this is that you're going to see more and more moments like this as he keeps trying things. Like if he throws these tariffs on and they backfire and the economy starts to tank. I mean, they're still calling it Bidenflation. They're trying to
Yeah,
blame inflation on Joe Biden. Joe Biden's policies are done. He's
yeah,
setting the policy now. Um, we need every time he fucks up, we need to keep the pressure on him, pointing out that Republicans are in charge and go from there. The more pressure he feels, the more he's going to fuck up, and the more he fucks up, the more pressure he's going to feel. It is going to be a nonstop thing until he's either out of office, he's thrown out of office by the Republicans, or that Big Mac finally gets him.
Yeah. There's a question out here, and I don't know if this is a serious question or a Trump Trump asking a question, but it says, "How does Zelensky define security guarantees?" Question mark, question mark, question mark, question mark. Well, what you have to understand, if you're asking a serious question, here's what you have to understand. Donald Trump wanted the mineral rights. He made no offer of future security. And when you're talking about future security, it's money to continue to fight the war, support in any way they possibly can. Donald Trump never said he would do that. He said he wanted the mineral rights to pay for the money we already gave them. And he exaggerated the money that we gave them. Then that's what Donald Trump does. He exaggerates constantly. It does no good if they get the mineral rights and there is no help going forward against Russia. There is no value there. And Donald Trump did not want to give him anything, any kind of assurances of security. They asked him, a person from the press said, "What kind of security assurances are you going to give Ukraine?" And he said, "Security? Why are we even talking about security? We can't do anything about security until we get the deal done. Give me the money, give me the mineral rights, and then we'll talk about security." The problem is Donald Trump is known for being a deadbeat. He's a fucking deadbeat. And what he would do is he'd take the minerals and not do anything for Zelensky and just let Vladimir Putin run roughshod. How do we know this? That's how he does every fucking deal.
Well, yeah. And so, okay, Donald Trump says, let's get this deal done. Give me, we already spent about $150 billion, give or take. And you're going to give me $500 billion worth of mineral rights. And then we'll talk more money going your way. No deal, no more money. So how much is the next batch of money going to cost him? And the next,
Yeah,
and the next. That's how Donald Trump does business. Zelensky had every right to know what kind of security guarantees we give him, and the person in the press who asked that question was doing a good job.
yeah,
Um, Realistically, the amount of damage we're doing to Russia without putting a single boot on the ground is amazing. We're
yeah,
giving them military equipment, a lot of which was mothballed stuff that we were going to let go to waste anyway. Or
right.
it was stuff we went to American manufacturers and said, hey, make us this. Here's a work order for 1 million rifles and, 1 billion rounds of ammo. How much money did that pump into the economy? But Donald Trump doesn't understand any of it. All he's caring about is let's get this deal done now. Give me what I want. Let's get the mineral rights because I guarantee you, whatever U.S. contractor would go in there to mine those mineral rights, Donald Trump would probably be getting a kickback on the backside.
Well, and Donald Trump has a track history of not following through. I mean, he burned every vendor that ever worked for him while he was building buildings and casinos and that sort of thing. He had a charity, a foundation that was bringing in money for charities and never paid the charities. He was banned from whole having a foundation in New York forever. This is what Donald Trump does. I remember hearing a story where he had somebody do something, and the guy says, "Hey, I want to get paid." And Donald says, "Oh, I'll pay you half." He goes, "I can't do that. I'll go broke. I can't do that." He says, "Well, then I'll take you to court. We'll run you through court for 5 years. You'll go broke anyway." This is how he does business. He is a fucking embarrassment. And why anybody walks into a situation and trusts him, nobody should. If I was in business and I knew his track record, I wouldn't even deal with him. And I applaud Zelensky for seeing that and not bending the knee like a lot of other people already have.
Well, yeah. And I think that's why now for a while we haven't seen any new construction out of the Trump organization. People have come to realize how he does business when it comes to building things. He does, he stiffs everybody along the way.
Yeah.
And then he creates these companies to sell products, you know, runs the company into the ground, but gives himself a golden parachute as they're going into bankruptcy and people are on the unemployment line. I was talking to somebody in the town I grew up in, a small town, and they were describing somebody pretty much like Donald Trump who was doing business the same way in real estate. And I'm like, yeah, let me guess, you guys ran him out of town, didn't you? Pretty much,
Yeah,
but the guy's a Trump supporter.
yeah, of course. But it's okay if Donald Trump does it. When I was in business and I was dealing with some shady people on both sides of the coin, I was mediating deals, so everybody got a decent deal. I dealt with so many unsavory motherfuckers, and my only attitude with them is if they came to me, I'd say, I'm not dealing with you. I can't trust you. And even if I do deal with you, you're going to have to do it exactly the way I tell you, or the deal's not going to happen. And most of them wouldn't do it because they're in there to win and they don't care who gets screwed. What people don't understand is when you've got two parties negotiating, one guy wants to win and the other guy has to lose. That's the problem with Donald Trump. It's not that he always wants to win, but he also needs somebody to lose. The problem in business when you do that is while you may win that deal, there'll never be another deal because that fucker will never deal with you again. It's very short sighted. It's a way of losing. And this is what Donald Trump has done his entire life.
Well, yeah, using your business example, they want to get, instead of making $1 billion or $1 million on the deal and being able to do 10 deals, let's get 5 million on one deal. Because I get that deal right up front. It's
Yeah.
short-sighted, it's dumb, and people like that normally don't survive to be businessmen as long as Donald Trump has. The only
No,
reason he's been able to do it has been because he's been able to play shell games with his money, leverage properties for more than they're worth, get big loans for, you know, uh, properties that are worth 10 million. He gets $100 million loan on them. Well, then because he's got the loan, some other bank will say, "Oh, well, that property must really be worth $100 million. I'll give you $200 million loan." It's ridiculous. It's a
yeah.
shell game.
Well, and he's always had a sugar daddy. When it was originally, it was his dad bailing him out to the tune of
Yep.
$400 million. And when dad dies and the money runs out, then Russia identifies him as a potential asset. Now, understand when I say Donald Trump's an asset, it's not that he's smart. He's a useful idiot. And Russia and Vladimir Putin have recognized that he's easily manipulated. We're seeing it today when he's siding with Vladimir Putin, who is our mortal enemy. Uh, at this point, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again because I think people need to understand. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, the entire Trump administration, and most of the Republicans, they are enemies of this country. They've proven that, trying to undermine democracy. And I need to say this too: the people that support them, you are enemies of this country too. And when this is all said and done, you're going to have a lot of fucking answering to do.
Yeah, they will. Give you some food for thought, though. Reagan, Reagan today would be tossed
Yeah.
out of the Republican Party.
Yeah, absolutely. As
He would
much
be
as
considered
they
a rhino.
admire him, yeah, as much as they admire him, they would kick his ass out in an instant. He'd be too woke.
Yeah, and mostly because he's anti-Russia.
Yeah. Well, yeah, nobody was more anti-Russia than Ronald Reagan and the Republicans for that matter. This is a incredible twist for the Republican Party. We brought this up earlier, and Michael Zena is asking, and I'm curious as to what you think this means. Says, what are your guys' thoughts on James Carville uh, saying the Republicans are going to collapse in 30 days? He doesn't talk about specifics. What do you think he means, and do you think he's onto something?
As far as Republican Party collapsing, you could see it entirely depends. They could turn on Donald Trump, impeach and remove. You could see some major defectors. Um, end up leaving the Republican Party. Maybe they become independent. Maybe they switch parties enough to flip control of the House, the Senate. I mean, that's wishful thinking, I realize. But if they think that the only way they can maintain their own power is to switch parties, I don't put it past some of these Republicans.
Yeah.
You're going to start seeing the infighting continue when they say the Republican Party is going to collapse on itself. You're going to start seeing some red state governors calling out saying, hey, you know what? My state's hurting because you're doing this. Put the funding back, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Um, do you think it's already chaos now?
Yeah. It's going to get
The,
worse.
yeah, the big test is coming up in 14 days when they have to pass this funding bill. And I still believe, maybe I'll be wrong, but I think Democrats are going to be the ones to get that funding deal passed. They're going to be the ones coming in hot with the last minute save.
Do you think the Democrats are saying, now let's shut this motherfucker down? Even if they get the blame, it's so far off the elections, people don't remember what happened yesterday. Do they shut it down just to slow everything down, Elon Musk and everything, and say, fuck you, we're not helping you? Shut the motherfucker down.
See, I don't know. I don't know if if they're willing to let them burn it all down, or if they would be more, if they more want to come in and do the backdoor deal to restore everything and put it back the way it was.
Well, if they
I don't
could do
know.
that, yeah, they certainly want to do it, but then the Republicans have to deal with Donald Trump. They have to be willing to go against Donald Trump in order to do that. And will they be able to do that in 14 days?
That I don't know. Um, I don't know which way the Democrats want to play it. If they're more willing to let it all get shut down, that's an interesting question.
Well, like I said before, government shutdown, everybody's worried about that, but we're essentially in the middle of a government shutdown right now by way of Elon Musk. And if you shut it down completely, does that slow down Elon Musk? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not.
Actually, I think a government shutdown would actually speed things up for Musk.
Well, that's true too.
Because the people that are already in these departments that are trying to help, and not help Musk, help the everyday people, they're the ones that aren't going to be there. Or he could say, well, you were furloughed, you didn't get any work done last week. Oh, you're not worth it. We need to let you go. It is, uh, I think a government shutdown doesn't help the country by any means, even this long, especially considering that right around the time of the shutdown, now we got to also deal with the debt ceiling.
Yeah.
They're both pretty much at the same point. So I don't know.
Here's a question from the comments. I'd never thought of this question. And on the surface, you go, that's fucking crazy. That would never happen. But you've got to understand Donald Trump's involved, so anything's possible. Sparkling Water said this. Do you guys think Trump will send weapons and troops to support Putin just to spite Ukraine and Zelensky? Now, that thought sounds absolutely crazy, but that sounds like the dumb shit that Donald Trump would do.
It does. And then the problem becomes, what does Congress do? Where do they draw the line in the sand? Is that where they say, okay, oh shit, we can't deal with this? I don't I don't know if that's a bridge too far for them or not.
God, I would hope it would be. It's certainly going to be a bridge too far for Europe. They're going to be fucking incensed. I don't know what they can do, but they'll do anything they can, I would think, at that point.
Oh yeah. Um, and beyond that, if he said it, if he would only send weapons, I could see the Republicans trying to find a way to spin it that, oh, we sold them for a profit. It was such a great deal for us.
Yeah,
Um,
but
whether it's true or not, I can see him spinning it. If he sends troops, oh good
that is
lord.
that is a bridge too far. I mean, that's just, sparkling waters. That's a crazy fucking question. It's sad that we even have to consider it as a possibility, but given the circumstances, we do have to consider it.
Unfortunately, it is. Yeah, we do. It is. Donald Trump, we don't know what he's going to do next. And the thing is, he doesn't know necessarily what he's going to do next. We may wake up tomorrow because, we're doing this at, in the, what is it, 10 o'clock, something like that right now, almost 11, you
On
know,
Friday night.
on
Yeah.
Friday night. About 3 a.m., we could all see a tweet go out on Truth Social that I'm backing Putin and we've come to a deal on weapons, or we've come to it could be some 3 a.m. thing that even Putin doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah. Well, Donald Trump says a lot of things that he's never talked to anybody else about, suggesting, I mean, it goes to like what we were talking about with this deal that he was going to sign. I heard it reported that the deal was imminent. The deal was going to be signed on Friday, and Zelensky would come in, they sign it away. Big win for Donald Trump. He was talking like it was a foregone conclusion. And when that came out, I said, that does not sound right. I don't think that's true. I don't think he's going to get this deal done. And sure enough, no fucking deal.
Yeah, I hadn't done a video on the this deal, mostly because I wasn't sure it was actually going to happen. I was going to wait and see what developed down the road. And if Donald Trump is saying it's a guarantee, it's um, a sure thing, it probably isn't, because if he's breathing, he's lying.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why I don't understand why Trump fucks believe everything he says. He's a well-known pathological liar. If you believe a pathological liar, you're a dumb motherfucker.
Exactly. Um, I mean, I'm surprised Donald Trump hasn't tried to sell the Trumplefucks part ownership in the Brooklyn Bridge.
Yeah, no shit. Frank Campolino says they had to get Vance out of hiding today. I thought he fell on the face. He fell off the face of the earth or went to Mars. He should have stayed where he was in hiding. That's a good question. Why was Vance there if not to incite this whole situation? And why wasn't Elon? I mean, Elon had no business being there, but I'm surprised he wasn't.
Well, yeah, I think Vance was there to uh as a show of force. I think it was somebody's idea that if we're going to show with our, we got president to president, they're kind of equal. So let's bring in
Yeah.
our VP, our second in command, and we're going to show we got more leadership in the room. We'll gang up on him, we'll strong arm him, and that's what bullies like to do. A lot of times, bullies have two or three of their close allies, their buddies, and they're not nearly as tough when a one-on-one situation. As far as where Elon was at, maybe he was out juggling a chainsaw somewhere.
Yeah, no shit. Well, there's another way to look at this with JD Vance. They knew this was going to turn into a shit show. They needed JD Vance to incite it. This was a setup, and now JD ends up being the scapegoat. Donald Trump said, "I did a perfect job. It was a perfect meeting, but JD fucked it up." I could see him doing that too.
Yeah, I could see that. And Donald Trump didn't want JD to fuck it up, but if it went badly, he could blame JD. If it went perfectly, he could take credit. That sounds like
Yeah,
typical Donald Trump.
it sounds silly. It sounds immature, but we've seen this over and over again for 9 years. So we should not be surprised if that. I mean, we're recording. This is going to air on the podcast probably on Sunday or whatever. It's on Sunday. Old Soul was on yesterday. So there will be some things happening prior to this airing as the podcast. I'll do some short things too to kind of update everything. But at this point, every time I wake up, I turn on the news only for a short time because I'm not watching mainstream news, but I got to hear what shit show happened, or if somebody died, or something happened, because inevitably something happens every day. Today was a good example with the press conference.
Oh yeah, there's always some shit happening, and I don't watch mainstream media. I usually get my news through a couple different news apps, and I look for stuff that way, or I find it on TikTok. And but there's always some bullshit going down. There's never a shortage of things to talk about when it comes to Donald Trump. Either he's losing at court, or he's pulling some bullshit, or embarrassing us on the world stage like he was today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Eric, I'm going to wrap things up. We've been here for an hour 45. I'm glad we were able to pull this together. I'm glad you reminded me how to do this. I won't forget next time. I'm going to do some more YouTube lives. First of all, I was kicked off TikTok lives till March 6th, but I enjoy doing these here because it's more calm. We don't have as many people as we do on TikTok, but that's not the point. If we have an audience that wants to hear this sort of thing, I want to be here for it. So we'll be doing more of the YouTube lives whenever we can. I want to thank uh, TJ. I think he's gone now, but he was on the first live. And Rebecca, she was helping out with the moderation. Benny Loco was helping out with the moderation. You did a hell of a job. Last time I did this on my own, I had nothing but Trumplefux, and we didn't have those problems this time around. So I appreciate the effort. And Eric, thanks for coming on short notice and talking. I needed somebody with a level head to talk to, and uh, I couldn't find any, so I got you. I'm kidding, of
well,
course. I'm kidding.
well, thanks for having me. I love doing the podcast, love doing the lives. This was kind of a new experience doing a YouTube one for once, but look forward to doing more of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now that we figured it out, it works out pretty well. And I like the one-on-one thing and dealing with the comments. Because when you get on TikTok and you have a bunch of people in there, you end up missing the comments. And I think the comments from the people listening to this are very important. And I'm glad we are able to see that and have this conversation because we need to keep talking about this. We need to keep the narrative going. We need to keep people informed with the absolute shit show that is ensuing in this country. It's going to get worse, but we'll be here to talk about it and hopefully inform some folks about what's going on. And you got to keep speaking up. You got to make the calls. You got to go to the protest. You've got to call your reps and Senate. We've got to keep the noise loud. That's the only thing we have working for us at this point. So please keep talking loudly. I will tell you too, if you want to listen to the Rational Boomer podcast, and I have no fucking idea why you wouldn't, be sure to check out the Rational Boomer podcast every day on YouTube here or on Spotify for the audio version. It's always a great show. We have great guests. We do lives and that sort of stuff. So if you want to catch up on things and you want a little longer version, check out the Rational Boomer podcast. So thank you, Eric. I appreciate it immensely.
Yeah, again, thanks for having me. And for those of you that want to check me out, my page is Analytical Iowan here over on YouTube, also on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Clapper. Uh, Struggling a little bit. Clapper's not as user friendly as YouTube, nor as
Yeah.
user friendly as TikTok. Um, and I don't do as much as I probably should with Blue Sky. But those are the places you can find me. Analytical Iowan on all of them. And if you find me on one, Linktree in my bio, not just to me, but to a lot of the creators we kind of have started to form a community with.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of good people to listen to. By all means, listen to Eric. I listen to Eric because he gives a lot of details that I don't necessarily give. I give more of a big picture, but those details are invaluable to me when I put together whatever I do. So by all means, check out Eric on YouTube, on TikTok, on Clapper, on Blue Sky. It's Analytical Iowan. And if you haven't checked it out yet, you should. In fact, if you haven't checked it out, I'm going to admonish you next time we do a live. So you got fucking homework. Check it out. All right. All right, Eric. Thank you very much. To all of you listening, I want to thank you for taking the time to do it. Hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon.